Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Playbook, episode 2. Today we're going to be talking about Tesla, and I'm joined with my esteemed colleague, my co-host Ismail Abdurrahman of iVibes. Ismail, how you doing?
Good, bro. How's it going?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing well. Excited to talk about something you like to talk about a lot, which is innovation and why innovation is very important in the entrepreneur's journey or in the entrepreneur's playbook and in entrepreneurship in general. So off the bat, when we mention the word Tesla and you hear the word Tesla, what's some of the first things that come to your mind?
Besides their iconic leader, Elon Musk, innovation,
Hmm.
because it seems that, for as long as we've heard about Tesla, it's always been from the perspective of Tesla being at the forefront of some type of innovation. So whether we're talking about, space exploration or the automotive industry or whatever it is, it seems like they're taking a very distinct approach, not just to market leadership, but domination based on innovation.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think again, it's amazing that if you think about building a car, right? You think about Ford and Toyota and Hyundai and all these companies where they produce a car. Maybe they have their own plants, but then they sell it at they sell it at other people's dealerships, and they're putting their own, they're putting other companies' batteries in them. And we're gonna in part talk about Tesla's innovative way and how they've gone into even now wanting to produce their own batteries and using innovative technologies to produce the batteries. But it seems like Tesla, as an entrepreneur, you're at awe because now they're not just trying to control one aspect of producing the car. It seems like they're trying to control every aspect of it, right? Which I'm assuming up front they probably have to pay more, but long term they're making a lot more money.
Well, and you hit it right on the head because the name of the game, and this is something that I think I talked about maybe a week or two ago on the live broadcast on Instagram, and that is that from the entrepreneur's perspective, right? What usually happens. Let's see if I have something here that I could use to demonstrate, right? So if we think about the value chain, right? So we got a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. Typically, what happens is most entrepreneurs, where are we? Here we go. Are playing. Wait,
Yeah, that's right.
okay. They're over here, right? So they're at the bottom of the value chain. Now, what happened with procurement and sourcing the components for the products that they're bringing to the market, and all of those various elements, they're left out of that equation. So their margins are much smaller. On the other hand, when you start to do like Tesla's doing and you start to own more of the value chain, then even when you can sell a car for $35,000, your margins are huge because now you're making your own batteries, for example, and other of the tech components of the car that were made in house. You didn't have to outsource, So and controlling more of the value chain, it's more value for the company. They continue to build on the in-house capabilities that they have, and with that, there's they handle succession, and then they are able to again hand over a playbook for innovation to the next cadre of engineers that they bring in house. So theoretically, this can continue to happen for them at a rate that nobody else is going to be able to match, and that's why they're going to be so far ahead of the game. No one's going to catch them. Like at this point, they have lapped the field. You know what I mean? So at this point, there's unless they implode organizationally, which it could happen based on certain
Hmm.
rumors, but unless they implode organizationally, I mean they're too far ahead of the market to be able to slow down.
Yeah, what's interesting is not only from the perspective that you just mentioned that it's innovative in the sense now they're trying to control more of the value chain. It's also the technological component of what they're doing in terms of the battery. The battery itself is innovation, right? Where it's supposed to be able to store more energy or power, and it's supposed to give out more power outage or output. And I know one of their upcoming 2021 cars is going to be loaded with this new battery that's still being readied. And then this is also why they're anticipating in the next couple of years they can make a $25,000 version of their car. The lowest thus far has been 35,000, but with the increased capacities of the battery, right? They're going to be able to produce a cheaper car. But what's also even more crazy, I was reading earlier that a lot of the heavy metals that are found for these batteries are mined in like Africa and South America, right? I don't know if you saw, but now Elon Musk wants to actually mine for it in Nevada or Colorado somewhere. So even that
Yeah.
element of it, which is let's do it in the good old US of A.
Yeah, and then when you think about that, it's like, okay, so where could this go? Like if you think like in terms of the way entrepreneurs iterate innovation, right? One of the games that we play is like imagine the future, like, what if scenarios, 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. And then sometimes we imagine the future, then reverse engineer it. So the way that they're going about this, like, what are the possibilities? So, once this battery, like they built out the tech, they tested it, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You got longer battery life at a cheaper cost. And now you're able to, scale in terms of the production. What are the other possibilities? Like, are we going to, get rid of our electric grids in our neighborhoods now, and we're going to replace them with, batteries that almost never die? Like, where else could this go? And I think that's the thing that's fascinating. Like you said, from the tech aspect of it, like, what are the possibilities? When you think about it from that perspective, it's like, wow, they're on top of it.
I think definitely with this whole net zero carbon emission goal, right? It's definitely a step in that direction. It's in the step of cleaner technology, cleaner energy, locally produced energy. Can we eventually see some of these batteries powering electric trucks, electric? And I don't mean the cyber truck that they're producing. I'm talking about like a big rig, right? Or maybe even powering a helicopter or a plane or a city or a house, right? I think it's a step in that direction. We know that I forgot the name of it, but they had their own version of a solar roof. Tesla did.
Right.
Yeah. So I think definitely cleaner energy, more efficient energy. This is the very definition of innovation, and it's also it's a good segue to talking about the other project that was unveiled recently, which was the Neuralink, the chip that implants in the brain. Which again, fascinating demonstration, fascinating potential and probable implications of what this can do. But this is straight out of like science fiction movies in terms of what they're talking about doing now, right? With your brain. And before I go into the Neuralink, what were your thoughts on the Neuralink?
Uh, when I first heard about it, I'm not going to lie. I did have that raised eyebrow skepticism, because
Right.
I was trying to think like, where is this coming from and where is it going? You know what
Yep.
I mean? And how far have they already developed it? Because um, I mean, there have been over the years different attempts to map technology to the mind in order to control the body. We see people with these bionic you know what I'm saying, prosthetic devices that people learn to control their minds, but it's based on magnets, right? So the response time isn't automatic, and there's uneven predictability with respect to how well it's going to work and function. But I was thinking more like it was going to be something like that. And then when I saw the demo with the pigs, all kind of thoughts started racing through my mind, and I'm thinking like, this is major. You know what I mean? Like, especially if they're talking about being able to offer the Neuralink for a couple $1,000s, like
LASIK, LASIK eye surgery. That's what
about
they said.
the yeah, it's like, are you serious? And I mean, okay, so if we think just in terms of the major clinical functions, that they hope to impact people with paralysis, um, I think they mentioned dementia, maybe Alzheimer's patients and what have you, people with spinal injuries. That's great, but where else could it go? You know what I mean? Like,
He mentioned, yeah,
no,
he mentioned some directions that it could go, which were definitely scary, potentially scary. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, can somebody hack this? Can somebody hack it and send signals to the chip, which makes the brain receive those signals and makes the body do certain things? You know, like you're hijacking a person, right? Um, Definitely, he
right,
said one thing is about storing memories, that like he wants to be able to store memories and then maybe potentially re-upload those memories into a new body. He talked about a
exactly.
symbiosis with artificial intelligence. I,
Hmm.
I think those things are definitely there and potential. Maybe we're definitely headed in those directions. But I can't hide my excitement about the fact that if you have a spinal cord injury, if you have dementia, if you have, there's already implants for people who have Parkinson's, right? I had a neighbor of my in-laws. Guy was real cool person. Every time I drive by and see him, he's like an old school hippie type of person, sitting out in the front of his yard, like on some type of guitar. Man, it was like some, I don't even know what type of guitar it was, and he has like these two big dogs, long flowing hair, just sitting there. And I remember when he got hit with the Parkinson's, and then I saw him, and he was like a different person, man. Like he had like very little control of his functions, and very jerky. Like all the movements were very jerky and pronounced. And he, I believe he got laid off, and his quality of life changed. And then when I checked in like a year later, I heard he got the implant in his brain, right, which sends signals to the brain, I guess somehow, which calms your reaction or how you react to the Parkinson signals. And when I saw him, I'm not gonna say it was perfect, but it was like 75 to 80% symptom reduction, right? And he was able to
Wow.
regain. Yeah. I'm telling you, it was amazing. It was amazing seeing him when he got the diagnosis for Parkinson's and it started affecting him, and then when he got the implant and he was able to go outside, he had a little bit of like the jerky motion, but he was able to have more control of his body. He got rehired by a company. So even from that perspective, he started feeling like a man again because now he's working, he's providing for his family. So that's why when you think about what they're trying to do with the Neuralink, and they're talking about the price being like $3,000 to $4,000, the price of LASIK eye surgery, and it's going to be outpatient surgery, like humanless. You get local
Right.
anesthesia, and that robot basically does the entire surgery. But if, like I said, if you do have a spinal cord injury, or if you do have vision or hearing issues that are related to the brain, if you do have dementia, if you do have Alzheimer's, if you do have some type of chronic stress, and the fact that this could help you, I think is very fascinating. It's also very innovative, right? Just from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And also, if this is the future, right, and if this was the future if this is the direction we were going to head in anyways, again, from an ethical and personal standpoint, I'm gonna keep that on one side. But from just a purely entrepreneurial and innovative standpoint, I mean, he definitely takes the cake, man, right? He's getting into it, not necessarily like you said, not even first, because there's been other people who have done a few of these things, but he got the hype. He got the hype train going, so that counts for something.
Well, definitely. Then the other thing is, like, as I was listening to him talk about it, with them marrying AI into the equation, and them picking up the patterns, right, of the neural firing across the synapses, and then whatever how the body responds. Once they're able to predict patterns, then he said that they can, basically program the transmitter to create certain physical outputs, so to speak, right? So then I'm thinking like you, okay, but wait a minute now. If this thing gets hacked, you could really take advantage of somebody. And then, of course, you start thinking all kind of things about undesirable populations of people, people in prison and what have you. But then, something that's, I guess less controversial to some extent is this, right? In sports, performance enhancing drugs have been a thing in terms of, competitive fairness, right? Since the 90s. But I noticed that in one of the demos they did with the pig who had two transmitters, like the way it performed was like unbelievable. So I'm thinking like, what if an athlete Or to say, you know what, I want to optimize my performance. Give me 2 transmitters. And with that, like I'm thinking the muscular output, that would result in, more explosiveness, for example, more muscular endurance, faster reaction times. I mean, like if you think about why Michael Jordan, couldn't play baseball, right? It's because his bat was too slow. I mean, I read an article later that said he wasn't as bad as it seemed at first, but his bat speed wasn't where it needed to be. He saw the ball, it took him too long to get the bat around. What if he had 2 neurotransmitters, and based upon, him tracking the ball, he could swing like, 2, 8/10 of a second faster. Now instead of striking out, he's knocking out the park. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about those applications as well, because I was just fascinated in looking at, when they had the different pigs, one who never had a transmitter, when they had the transmitter and had it taken out, when they had 1 transmitter and when they had the 2 transmitters. I was just fascinated by the technology. But like you said, I mean, when we go back to looking at this from an entrepreneurial mind, again, imagine the future. And you think about problems, like most importantly, the problems that he's solving, right? By, a thing that I think they showed us like, it's not the size of a penny, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's going to fit flat to your skull. I mean, it's amazing. Like thinking about having the foresight to say, okay, we have some solutions that are attempting to address certain types of problems. But remember, the existing solutions, I mean, they weren't able to reverse paralysis, right? These were, or full body paralysis, right? These were specific to a limb. So there are far fewer nerves involved in that. But if you're thinking like, wow, you know what, I want to help people who have systemic problems based upon brain injury or, cervical spine injuries, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just thinking about what the scientific mind, the entrepreneurial mind that went into that to come up with that, and then to spend, I don't know how long they've been working on it. I think it's 10 years or something like that. That's just fascinating to me.
Even the wiring, they were talking about the wiring, so that the processor or the receptor or whatever is the size of a penny, but the little nodes or the wiring that go into the brain are actually much thinner than existing technologies that do something of this nature that implant into the brain. So someone was making a comment saying that even the wires are less invasive, so they do less damage to the brain on the way in. And there's also more wires, I guess, which makes for better connectivity between the brain and the Neuralink. So okay. It's fascinating, man. It's absolutely fascinating. I know we talked about some potential Manchurian candidate type stuff, but we'll see. we'll see where that goes. But hopefully the intentions are not nefarious, which I don't think they are. And definitely for people who have MS and Parkinson's and different neural issues with their nerves, and diabetes and all these other things that affect their limbs and their functions. Hopefully, and quadriplegics and people with legitimate spinal cord injuries, right? I think that is where there's a lot of hope in terms of there's this, and then there's also, which we haven't discussed today, but like other regenerative medicine that people are starting to discover and use a variety of different type of stem cells that people are starting to inject into different places and realizing what they can do, whether you inject into the site of injury or whether you inject to the blood. So it's just fascinating to see where the next 10 or 15 years is going to take us in terms of holistic health and potentially, as you mentioned, like sports performance. But we'll see. We'll cross the sports performance bridge when we get there.
Yeah, but one thing I think is important to note, right? Now, in thinking about like how the whole idea came about, right? At some point, I'm assuming it was Elon, right? Who someone had an idea Now, in the company, they've got their tech guys, they've got their engineers, and they have the medical personnel, the doctors, right, the medical researchers. And none of this would have happened, wouldn't have been possible if they didn't come together. And this underscores the point for early stage entrepreneurs who are so afraid that someone's going to steal their idea.
Mm.
If you don't share your idea, if you don't validate it, you don't even know if it's a good idea. And ultimately, it doesn't matter if someone steals your idea, execution is what matters. So if you've got a great idea, but you've got no ability to execute, you don't have the resources, you don't have the in-house capabilities, then it really doesn't matter how great the idea is.
Mm.
Because ultimately, what's going to happen and what drives the process forward is the ability to execute. So, I mean, obviously, if you're an iconic founder and you've got a tribe of, frothing at the mouth fans who are hanging on your every word, and it's easy to raise funding, multiple rounds, that's great. But ultimately, he had to be able to test an idea by talking to experts. One of the things I always talk about when we're talking about, like, how do you know if you have a good idea and you have to vet the idea? Talk to people in the industry, talk to experts, right? And find out, is this even possible? What might be some roadblocks to being able to actually execute this? Are there regulatory issues that we have to be concerned about? What are going to be some of the barriers to entry? So, this is why you have to get out and talk to people. You talk to the people that you're trying to benefit with your solution. You talk to the other people that have the capabilities that you need to bring in-house to develop a solution, and then see if it can even be a viable solution. Now, had he not done it, had he said, you know what, I'm playing this close to the vest because this is going to change the world, and I don't want anyone to beat me to it, then we wouldn't be on the verge of such a major medical and scientific breakthrough. So, lesson to early stage entrepreneurs, ideas are great, but execution is what makes an impact and what makes you rich. So don't get hung up on the ideas so much. Get them and then see if you can execute them.
And on that note, for our aspiring entrepreneurs, as Ismail mentioned, there's definitely ideation, but there's also execution. So you can visit dlpinnovate.com/ebooks. I'll make sure I put the link in the comments. That's dlpinnovate.com/ebooks. And you can find a variety of ebooks for entrepreneurs. Some are free and some are paid. But whether you're trying to create an audio product or create a side hustle or create a full-blown product or find your niche or learn more about marketing, we have a variety of ebooks for you, even for moms. So go ahead and check out dlpinnovate.com/ebooks, and go ahead and check out dlpinnovate.com to find courses that Ismail and myself have developed for entrepreneurs. Whether you want to start a side hustle, whether you want to create a full blown business, we have a course for you. So that's going to be at dlpinnovate.com. And Ismail, I'll give you the last word until we're back on next week.
Again, it all starts with mindset, right? So even in our topic of discussion today, if we think about the battery, we think about the Neuralink, it all goes down to having an entrepreneurial mind and developing. That can be learned. There's some things that they say you're born with and not born with, like creativity and risk tolerance, what have you, and the ability to influence. But being able to spot opportunities and take appropriate courses of action to capitalize on them, and to be able to see opportunities as an opportunity, these skills can be developed. And one of the things that makes Elon Musk different from so many other people is that he's able to see, even if it's far off in the distance, somewhere in the shadows, he can find that little ray of light peeking through that says, you know what, that's a possibility. And if it's a possibility, it's an opportunity. So what we want to do is, spread the message of entrepreneurship, and importantly, help you develop the mindset that you need in order to make your entrepreneurial dreams come true.
So thank you everybody for joining, and me and Ismail will see you next week on the Entrepreneur's Playbook, and tune in for that topic next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys once more, and we'll see you next week. Have a nice day.
Thanks a lot.